Good afternoon, esteemed,
Let's start
good
again.
afternoon, esteemed guests, colleagues, scholars, and practitioners of taekwondo and Asian martial arts. On behalf of YSU Youngsan University, it is my great honor to welcome you to the 5th International Taekwondo Conference. This gathering is a significant milestone, marking another year of collaboration, research, and cultural exchanges in the field of martial arts. I extend a warm welcome to our distinguished presenters and participants from across the globe, from Korea, Germany, South Africa, and the United States. We are thrilled to host such a diverse array of minds dedicated to the exploration of martial arts, of practice that is not only a sport, but also a profound way of life. The university's Department of Taekwondo and the Department of Asian Martial Arts are co-hosting this year's event. These departments have worked tirelessly to create a program that reflects the depth, diversity, and evolution of Taekwondo and Asian martial art studies. Their commitment to fostering research, practice, and dialogue is a testament to the values we hold dear at Youngsan University. The theme of this year's conference, latest research on Taekwondo and Asian martial arts, aptly captures the essence of our mission. As martial arts practitioners, academics, and enthusiasts, we gather to share new insights, methodologies, and philosophies, each contributing to the growth of this ancient but yet ever-evolving field. Taekwondo, along with other Asian martial arts, embodies the blending of physical strength, mental discipline, and philosophical depth. It is a unique domain where tradition meets modernity, where the wisdom of the past continues to inform our future. In this light, I'm especially proud to see the native Korean ideal of Hong-ik Ingan woven into the fabric of our discussions today. Hong-ik Ingan, often translated as to benefit all humanity far and wide, is not only the founding tenet of our university and the Korean nation, but the guiding principle that aligns deeply with the philosophy behind Taekwondo. This principle emphasizes that the ultimate goal of human endeavor is to contribute positively to society and to support the well-being and prosperity of all. In Taekwondo and other martial arts, practitioners are taught to cultivate humility, respect, and compassion, striving to improve themselves and their communities. As scholars and practitioners, you all exemplify this spirit by advancing research that has the potential to uplift individuals and, by extension, society. Moreover, the values of Hong-ik Ingan remind us that martial arts are more than merely fighting techniques. They are a means to foster unity, understanding, and empathy among people from diverse backgrounds. As we follow presentations from our colleagues from Korea, Germany, South Africa, and the United States, we are reminded that the martial arts transcend international borders, uniting us in shared purpose and vision. In this space, we honor not only the unique perspectives each culture brings to martial arts, but also the universal aspirations that bind us together. This conference offers a rare opportunity to explore taekwondo and other Asian martial arts through an academic lens, enabling us to understand the nuances and complexities that are sometimes overlooked in mainstream discourse. It is my hope that the discussions and exchanges will inspire you, provoke new ideas, and above all, strengthen the ties within this global community. Together, we will shape the future of martial arts studies, making contributions that will enrich the lives of countless practitioners and students. In closing, I'd like to thank everyone involved in making this conference possible. To the presenters, thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise. To the organizers and volunteers, thank you for your dedication and hard work. And to all participants, thank you for joining us on this joyful journey of discovery. May this conference be a fruitful, enlightening, and inspiring experience for all. Once again, welcome to the 5th International Taekwondo Conference at Youngsan University. Let us move forward with the spirit of Hong-Ik Ingan, working together to benefit all humankind. Thank you very much.
It's Professor Park Ki-soon from the Department of Asian Martial Arts wants to say something.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to meet you online today. I am Cindy Park, Chair of the Department of Asian Martial Arts, Youngsan University. First of all, I would like to thank President Gu Uk-bu for allowing hold an online international conference today. And I would also like to thank the presentators who attended to make the presentation today. This conference is in collaboration with the Department of Asian Martial Arts and Taekwondo for the first time. I hope it ends successfully and well. Thank you.
So first presenter is Dr. Sanko Lewis from South Africa.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to Dr. Martin. Dr. Martin has heard a version of this presentation before, so I hope you're not too bored today. And thank you to the department chairpersons of Youngsan University, the Asian Martial Arts Department and Taekwondo Department for organizing this. Let me see how to share. So my presentation title, Taekwondo and the K-pop Effect, the challenge of maintaining Korean martial heritage. So when we talk about Taekwondo, we are basically talking about three branches of what is generally known as Taekwondo. So we have the ITF branch, which developed in the Korean military starting around 1946. It got its name in 1955 and became an international organization in 1965. Then we have Kuki or WT Taekwondo, also developing more from the civilian side of South Korea's Taekwondo. And formerly the Kuki one began around 1973-74. Under the leadership of Dr. Kim Un-young, it became an Olympic sport. And then we have independent Taekwondo. So these are not really practiced in Korea. These are Taekwondo pioneers that left Korea already in the 50s and 60s and started teaching abroad. What they were teaching at the time is karate. And when you look at those small groups of independent taekwondo, they still practice what looks like karate. Unlike ITF taekwondo and WT taekwondo that has changed, they don't look like karate anymore. So the embarrassing truth is that taekwondo is based on Japanese karate. Here is a picture of one of the pioneers teaching taekwondo in Hong Kong in 1966, and it is indistinguishable from a karate class. Taekwondo has its roots in Japanese martial arts, in karate, which has its roots from Okinawan karate, and all the original Guan instructors, the people that taught what is now Taekwondo in Korea, they were all Japanese karate practitioners. They just taught it in Korea, so we can call it Korean karate if we want to be nice. So it's kind of embarrassing, this fact that Taekwondo, which is now a national sport, has this root in the martial art of the occupier of Japan. So from the very start, there was this face-saving lie to pretend that Taekwondo has this long heritage from Korean martial practices, which we all know it's not true. The face-saving lie started in 1954 when Chae Hong-hee, a general in the ROC military, showed off his practitioners doing these combative skills. And the president, Sigmund Rhee, said, "Oh, is that Taekwondo that has been around in Korea since ancient times?" Now, of course, General Cheong-hee could not say, "Oh, no, this is karate, the martial art of the occupiers." So he came up with a term, Taekwondo, that sounds very much like Taekyon, and it was deliberately done in order to hide the fact that what they were doing was actually karate. This face-saving lie continued under the ethno-nationalism of President Park Chung-hee. And the lie is basically this, that Taekwondo has an ancient Korean lineage, and as a modern martial art, it is based on the indigenous art Taekyon, which is not true, as you all know. Nevertheless, this original karate that was practiced in Korea did start to evolve, and with time it became more and more Korean and less Japanese. So the start is from like the 1960s, then in the 1970s it started to change quite dramatically, and by the 1980s and early 1990s, Taekwondo was quite different from what was practiced in Japan. So it wasn't Japanese karate anymore. It now was a native Korean martial art. It has evolved into something new. And some people would say, well, it's just a completely novel invention. But I would argue that it was not so novel. It was influenced by the local culture. And my argument is based on the research I've done into Korean body culture over quite a long time. And this was eventually published in this anthology of articles by UNESCO called Traditional Martial Arts as Intangible Cultural Heritage. And in this publication, I lay out certain kinetic characteristics that make up Korean body culture. And what do I mean with Korean body culture? Well, I mean the way Koreans move that is unique to Koreans as opposed to, say, the way Japanese people move or the way Chinese people move, as we can see in things like Korean dance and Korean martial arts, or dances, martial arts, or other kinetic disciplines or movement disciplines. So I have made this whole list: natural, erect body culture, dungeon breathing, counterbalanced motions, Gulshin, verticality, Goksunmi, and kinetic chaining. I will only address a few of them. And with this list, I don't mean that other cultures do not have some of these elements. What I am saying is it's this combination of elements together that creates a synergetic effect that makes Korean movement looks particularly Korean. It gives to it a Korean flavor, which is somewhat different from a Japanese flavor or a Chinese flavor or some other cultural movement. And I will quickly go through some of these points now, starting with this one, Gushin. So Gushin means expansion and contraction, often synchronized with the breath, with Danjon Hohub. So when with the in-breath, the body rises and the limbs expand, and then with the exhalation, the body lowers, the limbs retract or tense up. And another expression of Gulshin is something called Ogum. Now, Ogum is the inside of a hinge joint, such as the back of the knee or the inside of the elbow or the inside of the hip joint. Usually when we talk about Ogumjil, we are talking about the back of the knee. And so Ogumjil is the movement of the knee, as you can see in this animation, this GIF of a Korean traditional dancer bending her knees up and down. So this is Ogumjil. Now, we notice this in various other kinetic disciplines in Korea, including some traditional martial arts, and in Taekwondo, this became a feature which is quite different from karate. Karate would avoid any unnecessary bending or extension of the knees, but in Taekwondo, very early on, we started to see this kind of bounciness in the knees. And in Kuki Taekwondo or Olympic style Taekwondo, it became this kind of balnorim. In ITF Taekwondo, it's in English called either knee spring or sine wave motion. The Korean term for this is hwaldung pado. Hwaldung is hwal is a bow, like archery bow, and dung, it's the back of the bow. So the bow has the back side and the inside. So the side that's furthest away from the string is the back of the bow, that's hwaldung. So basically, it refers to the curvature of a bow. And in ITF Taekwondo, when you move, there's this idea that your movement should have somewhat of a curvature, which is different from karate. In karate, when you move, there's an idea that your head is basically touching the ceiling and you shouldn't go up and down while moving. That is anathema in karate. So this is one of the first changes that happened as Taekwondo moved away from from Japanese body culture to Korean body culture. Another feature is that kind of comes out of this Ogumjil is verticality. So verticality is simply another way of saying up and down movements or bounciness. And in karate, there's a 2-beat rhythm, but the Korean traditional rhythms have a 3-beat rhythm usually. And I'm going to quote from Van Zyl. She's a ethnographer focusing on Korean dance, and she says, movement phrases are choreographed in 3-beat units, and underlying musical pulses are typically further subdivided in 3 units of 3. And we see this idea of a 3-beat in Taekwondo, which has their triangular stepping called Pumbalki. And in ITF Taekwondo, there's also a 3-beat rhythm. In Kuki Taekwondo, there's no focus on an actual 3-beat, but what we do have is the bounciness. Now, one way of understanding this is thinking of this extra beat as a breaking in the rhythm. So if you have a 2-beat or a 4-beat, it's a very fixed step. But the moment you have an off beat or an uneven beat, it creates a breaking in the rhythm, which is just another way of helping them to bounce around more. It will take a little longer for me to explain that in detail, but nevertheless, what we do have in ITF Taekwondo, in Kuki Taekwondo, is this looseness, this freedom to move around, a freedom to bounce up and down. And I know Dr. Muni says this footwork comes from boxing, Western boxing, because of the boxing influence in Jido Guan, one of the early Guans. But the truth is, other Guans also did it, even the ones like Jangdo Guan and Odo Guan, the ones that didn't have that boxing influence. So very early on, the Koreans felt a comfortableness with breaking the Japanese rules and started to bounce around and move their feet in a different way. So this bouncy rhythm increased the mobility that we see in Taekwondo, which became a feature, especially in Taekwondo's counterattacks. Another important feature is this the idea of gokseonmi. Now, gokseonmi is basically the Korean aesthetic that believes curved lines are beautiful. So this again is different from Japanese karate. The Japanese people's aesthetic is based on Shintoism, the native religion of Japan. And Shintoism believes that straight lines are not only beautiful, but good, in morally good, in a kind of religious sense. Whereas Koreans have a different concept. Koreans believe that natural curves are beautiful. Now, this might be because of the Korean landscape, the curvy rolling mountains and the pine trees that are not straight, as in Japan and most of the world. The Korean pine tree has these natural curves in the stems. And for Koreans, a good technique or a good movement is one that is not restrictively straight or rigidly straight. Rather, it's one that is naturally curved. And these natural curves is what we also see in Korean traditional dance movements, in Taekwondo movements, and also in Taekwondo. Taekwondo movement moved away from the rigid straight lines in karate and started to curve more. Dr. Udo Muning describes this in his book on the evolution of Taekwondo as a necessity for the powerful kicks. But I believe that this concept that the movement can have this kind of curvature is what allowed the Koreans to think in this new way. And this is also more I will describe this further in this next point, which is kinetic chaining. So in Korean dance, let me read another quote from Van Zyl. She says, sequential flow of movement from one body part to an adjacent body part, even when there is a small movement in a peripheral body part, such as a subtle, almost pulsing action in the wrist, the movement does not occur in isolation. It is initiated with an inhalation originating in the torso that vertically lengthens the spine, lifts the shoulders, and propels energy and movement through the entire length of the arm before resulting in the wrist action. Now, compare this with a description of an ITF Taekwondo technique. Hands are not suddenly shot at the target at the very beginning of the technique. Rather, the motion begins at the trunk, kinetically charging the technique by adding segments seeking maximum power in the confluence of acceleration and mass. And the same is true for Kuki Taekwondo, especially in the kicking techniques. The kicking techniques are done in a snapping or whipping motion, a chijikjiu motion. So to recap this, Taekwondo is a Korean martial art with strong links in Japanese karate. However, particularly in the 1960s and 70s within Kuki style Taekwondo and the 1970s and 80s in ITF style Taekwondo, it underwent important changes to its kinetic characteristics, making it characteristically significantly different from karate and much more Korean. Ethnographically, it would be appropriate to say that Taekwondo is a Korean martial art that embodies the kinetic characteristics associated with traditional Korean body culture, as I explained earlier, with principles like Gulshin, Ogamjiu, Goksonmi, the bounciness, the verticality, and so on. However, contemporary Taekwondo is still evolving and there's more changes occurring. And recently, these changes occurred in WT Taekwondo because of Olympic rule changes, which Doctors Herr Perez, Stephen Kapener, and Udo Monique described quite well in their research. Part of it is because of the protector scoring system, different pointing rules, and so on. But the point I want to focus on is the influence of K-pop. So traditional Korean music has a pentatonic scale and a 3-beat rhythm, which I mentioned earlier. But in the 1990s, a new type of music was introduced to Korea, and it's hip-hop music with its syncopated polyrhythms, including urban dance. So let me read some characteristics of hip-hop dance. First, the movements startle the viewer with angularity and asymmetry. There's a sensual energy in a refined form of raw expressiveness. There's accents of popping of isolated body parts or making parts of the body work in a fragmented manner. And it intimations of complex meter, different types of rhythm and physical dynamism. And as you can see, this is very different from the movement characteristics that I talked about earlier. It's very different from traditional Korean body culture. And as Dr. Kapener said in 2019 in a, I think it was at the Royal Asiatic Society, he says these inclusions of dance movements into the martial art have no physical or practical combative value. So to summarize, Taekwondo started out as culturally Japanese. It evolved into a Korean martial art that embodies characteristics of traditional Korean body culture. Contemporary Taekwondo is still evolving, and such contemporary changes have been critiqued by different proponents. There's the Taekwondo as traditional martial arts proponent that says, well, these techniques are not Taekwondo. It's not martial techniques anymore. Another one is critiquing it from a sports point of view. I'm adding to this critique Taekwondo as a cultural heritage. So contemporary Taekwondo is losing its cultural heritage. It's losing the kinetic characteristics that changed it from a Japanese martial art into a successful Korean martial art and combat sport that's different from Japanese. This current trend of attempting to follow in the wake of the global success of K-pop is, I believe, a futile endeavor. And like all fads, K-pop also will eventually lose popularity. And what will remain of Taekwondo is something diluted of its authentic Korean characteristics, because K-pop and urban dance have elements rooted in global pop culture rather than historic and kinetic foundations that once distinguished Taekwondo as a uniquely Korean practice. Thank you.
So thank you very much. The next presenter is Song Hyung-sok, Dr. Song Hyung-sok. Please.
I see some mood.
Yes. Oh, one moment.
Okay. You can hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. How are you? 스티븐 형, 잘 지냈어요?
잘 있습니다. 반갑습니다.
반갑습니다. 우리 박 교수님도 반가워요.
네, 반갑습니다, 교수님.
장 교수님, 루이스 교수님 반갑습니다. Okay. I would like talking about Taekwondo as a mean of soft diplomacy. The content built on two kind of thing, the mean of soft diplomacy and second, Taekwondo and soft diplomacy. I think about what is soft diplomacy. Soft diplomacy means all activity in which a country uses its soft power to achieve the object of its foreign policy. What is soft power? A nation power means traditional military and economic power. Soft power means national power from a country, culture, and value. Soft power proposed by Joseph Nye in 2004. He was a professor in Harvard University. And soft power is different from the traditional concept of power as follows. You know, hard power is military power and economic power. They used to question as reward, but soft power used inspiration and persuasion. Why soft power important in international relationship? I think there's 3 points. First, global spread of democracy, and second, emergence of new international actor, NGO or the individual, so you know that. And third, global governance. Yeah. How operate soft power? That is captivating the other country's heart with the charm of one's culture or value. It makes the another country support its foreign policy and make the another country's domestic political and economical policy move in the direction it wants. For this, the other country must recognize its one culture and value as attractive. Soft power operates only through the socialization process. And this suggests that the effectiveness of soft power may vary dependent on the reaction of other countries. And I would like talking about the example of America. Why the world is friendly to America. I think Hollywood, Coca-Cola, the Michael Jordan, so the soft power is very important for the friendly to make the America. And nowadays, Korea used out the soft power. Hallyu, Korean wave, the rise of Korean wave in the global society. You know that. BTS, Psy, and Korean movie, and Korean drama, and Korean sports, Korean food, Korean language. You know the journal, Monocle, this English journal, they report every year the rank of soft power in the world. 2021, they reported Korea second in the world. That's very important. And nowadays, Han Gang is very famous novelist. Korea is increasingly enhanced its international political standing in the world based on soft power. And I would like talking about taekwondo and soft diplomacy. Soft diplomacy through taekwondo start with the private lead, and it now being led by the Korean government. In order for one culture and value to right and attractive to other country, a supporters group that support the country's culture and value and spread it once another must be formed and encouraged. You know that President Park and Barack Obama on taekwondo make that friendly to the two presidents. And who make this one? I think through overseas migration of taekwondo master. The group, I think the three group, there is three group. First group is for the first time, 1925 or 1949, at the time, Choi Hong-hee, Nam Tae-hee, Woo Jong-nim, they go to America for the military studying, and they presentate taekwondo. That is the taekwondo to overseas for the first time. A second group is they go to in the world, Europe or America. Why? Because such a better educational opportunity. For example, Junri, Hang Se-jin, Hallie Joshi-hak, Jeon In-mun, Moon Dae-won. So, and third group is people who went abroad for the purpose of finding a job. The Son Deok-sung, Lee Heng-hung, you know that. Lee Heng-hung is very successful in America. He founded ATA, American Taekwondo Association, and with more than 1,300 taekwondo school and franchise in the USA. How taekwondo master and spread Korea culture and value for foreign trainers. Taekwondo master work hard to promote Korea and Korean culture during taekwondo instruction. They emphasize taegukgi, national anthem on Korean culture in the taekwondo class. They hoisted the taegukgi on the dojang wall, attached a small taegukgi to their uniform, sang the Korean national anthem and various events, used Korean command for the teaching, and taught Korean manner to the trainees. Knowledge about Korean culture was included in the promotion test, and Korean name was engraved on taekwondo uniform and belt. You can look this photo. Let's take a look at the situation in the 1960 and 1917 when taekwondo overseas expansion began in earliest. Junri, an American politician, in 1970, Junri arranged a meeting between Korean ambassador Kim Dong-jo and USA Congressman Lawrence Hogan. And afterward, Kim Dong-jo was appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs in recognition of his ability to negotiate with the United States, so on. And Son Deok-sung teached also Nixon before he became a United President. And 1969, Nixon expressed his favor to Korea by demonstrating taekwondo breaking technique. This is a report of New York Times. You know this one, the Kim Young-sam, Korean president. And Jun have a good friendship with Muhammad Ali. Ali is the greatest boxer in the world history. He said this is because the person accompanying Ali was a taekwondo master, Jun Lee. Ali said that strong punch that made him the champion was the taekwondo punching technique he learned from Jun Lee. And Shin Jae-chul and Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris, very famous action star in America. And you know, Elvis Presley. Yeah? Elvis Presley was the greatest singer in American history. And Lee Gang-hee opened a dojang in Memphis in 1966 on the teach of Elvis. And Bruce Lee also. Josiah have a good friendship with Bruce Lee. Jun also. So I think about the Korean taekwondo master in America, in another country, they have a good friendship with very famous political, the Schauspieler, the actor, or another thing, and have a prompt Korean diplomats. And since 1970, taekwondo overseas expansion have led by a Korean government. Taekwondo status changed from the private diplomacy to public diplomacy. Since the Korean government declared 2010 as the first year of public diplomacy, taekwondo's overseas advancement has been carried out in a variety of ways. Let's take a look at some example of Korean government effort to promote taekwondo overseas. In 1971, President Park Chung-hee said taekwondo was a national sport or the national skill, but this statement had no legal effect. But in 2018, the National Assembly of Korea enacted the National Taekwondo Promotion Act, official making taekwondo the national sport of Korea. The Korean government is using taekwondo in the following 5 ways as a part of its foreign policy to promote Korea. A mega sports event, international mass media, and taekwondo instructors dispatched overseas, taekwondo facility and infrastructure construction project, and taekwondo humanitarian foundation. You know that this is so many mega event, and they use this mega event for the taekwondo promotion. And YouTube was another international mass media used also for the this thing. And Gukyeon Taekwondo Instruction Overseas Dispatch Project. And so this one. You can see this one. And yeah. Iran, Turkey. Okay, I would like to finally, taekwondo is the original Korean wave that has been in charge of Korea's soft diplomacy for more than 70 years. The government, recognizing the importance of culture in diplomacy, is interested in taekwondo. Taekwondo diplomacy is changed from a private lead to government lead. Positive and negative aspect of government lead taekwondo diplomacy. I think positive aspect is the large-scale activity through governmental, legal, financial, and administrative support. But the negative function is to cause the purity of taekwondo to be questioned due to government intervention. I think because purpose involves play, this culture is no longer play, but no longer culture. I think a policy is required to maximize support and minimum interference. All government need to be invisible. Thanks so much. Finish. Udo.
All right, thank you very much. The next presentation is mine. I pre-recorded it because I manage here everything. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Today I want to talk about early Korean martial arts manuals. I think they really prove Taekwondo's roots in karate. Now, you can find part of this presentation here in my book, Taekwondo from Martial Art to Martial Sport, and also parts of it in various articles, especially this one in the Edo Movement for Culture journal. That's my book. Now, over the years, I collected pretty much all of the published martial arts textbooks in Korea from 1949, Hwangi's Hwasudo Gyobon, until 1972, Lee Chung-woo's Taekwondo Gyobon, which was basically the first modern Taekwondo textbook. Now, wait, let me go back. And used for comparison, I used two of the books here. The one by Jae Hong-hee in 65. Where is it? Here, Jae Hong-hee. It's the English version. And then in 68, here, Henry Cho's textbook. Well, I used these two for the visual comparison because they have the widest range of technique, and also they have the best quality photographs of all these books. But the comparison you could do with any of these books, actually, and the outcome would be different. Now, here also early authors have also all clear connections to karate in some way, either direct or indirect. Here, for example, Jae Hong-hee, well, he studied in Japan some Shotokan karate. Now, I compared the Korean textbooks to Japanese textbooks. And the first Japanese textbook was published in 1922 by Funakoshi, karate textbook. But this one was only with drawings. The first one with photographs was in 1925 here. And well, here, Motobo Choki, he was also quite important for the early textbooks. Well, during the 1930s, the Japanese published many books. They're not all listed here. Here for the comparison, I used Nishiyama's book from 1960, because Nishiyama, he was the most important Shotokan instructor during this time, and this book is also the most sold textbook, karate textbook ever. Now, here you can see, this is Nishiyama's book from 1960. This is Jae Hong-hee's book from 65, and Henry Cho's book also from 65. They're actually all English publications. Yeah. Now, this part of the presentation is not in my book because I was worried about copyrights. But 2 years ago, I published this content in the Edo Movement for Culture journal. Well, I I compared also different techniques in these books, and starting with formal stances. Now you can see here, this is Nishiyama Karate in 1960, Che Hong-hee in 65, what he calls taekwondo, and then Henry Cho, he called his style Korean Karate in 68 here. Now here are the basic stances. Again, basic stances, they're all the same basically. Only here the sparring stance is missing in Che Hong-hee's book, because he was very anti-sparring. And next we will talk about kicks. Here's the front kicks, push kicks. The roundhouse kick, of course, at this time executed with the ball of the foot, not with the instep yet. The side kick. Now, the only kick which is absent in the karate literature is the spinning back kick. I found it for the first time here in Che Hong-hee's book in 65, and also in another Korean publication. I think this was not used in karate, this technique, I mean. Now, here also the X kick. Nishiyama, he showed it only in the stretching section, so I don't think it was considered a kicking technique yet. And the hook kick is first shown here in 68 by Henry Cho. Well, of course, the hook kick is a kind of variation of the spinning back kick. And jump kicks are all the same, except the jump roundhouse kick is missing in the karate publications. Now, low kicks, the Japanese actually, they show more low kicks than the Korean publications. Now, you could do this with all the hand techniques, with striking, with blocking. They're basically all the same between earlier karate publication and then with the Korean publications. Here you can see one more time the techniques. Only here the spinning back kick, first time appears in 65. Here I listed some of the other books, so they contain all pretty much the same range of technique. Now, kicking techniques, they only started to change in Taekwondo during the late 60s because of full contact sparring, and some more modern kicks like the double kicks and turn kicks and so on, and like also the cut kicks, they developed only during the early 1980s. Of course, now contemporary Taekwondo changed a lot, and many of these kicking techniques are not used any longer. Now, in the next part, I compared the forms which is shown in early karate textbooks, and then in these early Taekwondo publications. And I used for the comparison here Funakoshi's book, Karate do Kyohan, from 1935. It was republished in 57 and then translated into English in 73. Here he shows for the first time all his kata, and some of the kata, they originated actually from Okinawa, and some of them he renamed, and also he invented a whole series of his own kata. Now let's compare this Funakoshi's kata to the early forms which are shown in the early Taekwondo textbooks. Now here, for example, Hwangi, you can see, these are all Funakoshi's kata. Also here in 1955, Che Song-nam, also pretty much all Funakoshi's kata. Here too, Park Chol-hee also, except they show sometimes one self-invented form. Also here, Hwangi, actually, he mentions one Chinese form. That's the only Chinese form in all the combined early Taekwondo, Korean martial arts literature. Now, this goes on up to the late or mid 60s. Of course, Che Hong-hee here, in 58, he started to, or before, already started to develop his own forms called Changhon-hyung. And here in 58, he had 5, and the whole set was completed here in 65. Now if you go here to 68, also Yvonne Guk, he shows also the karate kata, still Shotokan karate kata, and but he starts mentioning by name anyway some of the new black belt forms, and also some of the pumse, the teguk pumse. Now I think there only 2 were developed at this time, but then here Lee Jong-woo in 72, he dropped all the karate kata, all the karate terminology was dropped, and also the history was, the karate history was completely denied at this point. And here he shows for the first time also black belt, new black belt forms, and the palgi pumse and the teguk pumse. This is basically the first modern taekwondo textbook, and I don't think it changed too much until present times. Now here you can see one more time the single non-karate content in the early taekwondo literature, and this is his Chinese form mentioned by Huangyi in 49, but later on he didn't show this form again. Yeah? Now, let me come to the end, to a summary. Well, of course, all the founders of Taekwondo, they had a karate background. We could even say they were pro-Japanese. So, and after liberation, nationalism forced the Korean martial arts community to deny and obscure the karate legacy. Now, this was a gradual process, and it was accompanied by an institutionalization of Taekwondo. And finally, the different schools were united during the early 70s, and Taekwondo was proclaimed the nominal national sport of Korea, and at this time all references to karate were dropped. Now, Taekwondo history, as presented by this establishment, even nowadays, is largely a fiction and in a case of invention of tradition. Thank you very much. Here's the next presentation is by Dr. Martin Minarak. He also pre-recorded his presentation because it's quite early in Germany now.
Dear esteemed colleagues, I'm very happy to present at this particular conference on Taekwondo, since it gives a platform to academics who try to provide a somehow alternative understanding of the culture of Taekwondo, its history, its practice, as well as its norms, values, and ideologies. While the group of researchers at this conference has already provided insightful analysis of the institutional, technical, and ideological development of Taekwondo, the subjective values given to Taekwondo by its practitioners have been investigated to a much lesser extent so far. In my presentation, I would like to take a philosophical perspective on practice in Taekwondo, focusing on the concept of authenticity or what it could mean to engage in authentic practice. Authenticity is a term frequently used among practitioners of Taekwondo and by institutions alike. Even in discourses around the broader concept of martial arts, authenticity is a common topic to discuss also among academics. In general, authenticity refers to something, a phenomenon, a practice, a certain individuals or their behavior, characterized by originality, genuineness, and realness. Thus, authenticity is often regarded as the ultimate value or ideal to strive for, since it applies an element of truth in a world that subjectively might seem the opposite, untrue, unreal, or even fake. In discourses around Taekwondo and martial arts, authenticity is often aligned with ideas of tradition and national identity. This is evident in most recent publications by the Kukiwon, as well as regional and global events, such as the traditional Taekwondo Think Tank Forum, which was held on October 8th at Kojinam Resort in South Korea, which show the importance of tradition and national Korean identity as key concepts in defining original, true, genuine, or in other words, authentic Taekwondo. Some of the academics at this conference, as well as academics of martial arts, such as Bowman, Judkins, and Weil, have already problematized the concept of tradition or traditionality as an indicator for authenticity in Taekwondo and martial arts practice in general. From a phenomenological perspective, in practice or the dojang, tradition often manifests in what practice theory or performance studies might call materialities, such as bodies, practices, objects, or space. As Bowman writes in martial arts, uniforms, colored belts, bowing, kneeling, standing, and moving in lines, meditating, these are just some of the main visual discursive regularities associated with Asian martial arts classes in the West. While Bowman speaks about martial arts classes in Western-oriented, post-industrialized social-cultural context in particular, in Taekwondo, this surely applies to the Korean as well as a global context to some extent. In this sense, theatrical staging, consisted of specific cultural symbolism, is employed in Taekwondo dojangs around the world in form of clothing, rituals, decorations, and other objects to manufacture authenticity. However, being intentionally manufactured, authenticity, or rather the claim for authenticity, seems to collapse. So, is there no authenticity in Taekwondo practice at all? Is authenticity a value or an ideal that is just not applicable to the practice of Taekwondo? Is Taekwondo inherently inauthentic? I would like to argue that despite the apparent impossibility of authenticity in Taekwondo practice, there indeed is a form of authenticity which is not linked to theatrical staging in the sense of cultural symbolism and therefore to a problematic sense of tradition. Using a phenomenological argument, I aim to provide a theoretical framework to understand authenticity from the body, not as something to be found in materialities as cultural symbols, but in bodily self-perception. Authenticity as a form of experience, rather than an assemblage of specific cultural practices and symbols. Therefore, I will discuss some core concepts proposed by German philosophers Martin Heidegger and Helmut Plessner, as well as the French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty, to then examine core practices of Taekwondo training as structured framings of bodily experience. So what does it mean to understand authenticity from a phenomenological perspective? According to Martin Heidegger, authenticity can be only understood through the concept of Dasein, or being, our unique way of existing and being conscious in the world. For Heidegger, authenticity is not merely about being genuine or honest in the everyday sense. Rather, it represents a fundamental mode of being that involves an individual's confrontation with their own existence. In this sense, bodily experience can be seen as the most fundamental form of being. Similarly, for Maurice Merleau-Ponty, the body is not simply an object or a biological machine, but the very medium through which human beings experience and engage with reality. The body is not something a person has, but something a person is. It is the foundation of all perception, thought, and action, serving as the bridge between the self and the world. This engagement is pre-reflexive, meaning it occurs before conscious thought or analysis. For Merleau-Ponty, this immediacy reveals that the body is the primary site of existence, where the self and the world are intertwined. For Merleau-Ponty, bodies are not isolated entities, but always in relation to other bodies and to the shared world they inhabit. When one person interacts with another, it is their bodies that resonate with each other. For instance, in conversation, a person does not only hear the other's words, but also perceives their gestures, facial expressions, and tone, which they convey meaning. This understanding arises from the shared flesh of existence, a term that Merleau-Ponty used to describe the fundamental interconnectedness of all embodied beings, which he calls intercorporeality. For Merleau-Ponty, the body is not a closed-off entity, but one that is porous and receptive, one open to being affected by others while also affecting them in turn. For example, when witnessing another person's pain, one may feel a visceral reaction in their own body. This shared bodily resonance is not merely a metaphor, but a literal aspect of human experience. Likewise, German anthropologist Helmut Plessner agrees that the body is central to human existence and goes even further, however, in distinguishing between two modes of bodily being, in German, Körper and Leib. These terms capture the dual aspect of the human body, bridging its physical, observable dimensions and its subjective, experiential reality. For Plessner, Körper refers to the body as an external material object in the world. It is the body as seen, touched, or measured, a body subject to scientific observation and medical analysis. This object body is fundamental to human existence, but does not fully encompass what it means to live as a body. Plessner argues that while humans experience their own bodies as Körper, this objective stance does not exhaust their relation with embodiment. In contrast to Körper, Leib captures the body as its lived and experienced form within. It refers to the subjective and effective aspects of embodiment, the body as site of sensation, perception, and agency. When a person feels pain, moves their arm, or experiences joy, they're engaging with their body as Leib. Hence, the Leib is not an object, but a center of lived experience through which the world is revealed and meaning is constituted. Plessner emphasizes that Leib, the body, is inseparable from the self's experience of being in the world. While Körper situates the body within an objective framework, Leib reveals the body's centrality to subjectivity and intersubjectivity. In sparring, two practitioners engage in a dynamic relational encounter where the interaction between their bodies becomes the focal point. This practice embodies Merleau-Ponty's notion of intercorporeality, as sparring is fundamentally an interplay of two lived bodies responding to and shaping each other's movements in real time. Each practitioner's actions, kicks, evasions, and counters, are not isolated but arise in direct response to the other's gestures. For Merleau-Ponty, the body is a medium of connection, and in sparring, this connection is immediate and visceral. The participants anticipate and read each other's intentions through their bodies, often before conscious thought intervenes. For example, a subtle shift in weight or a slight motion of the opponent's shoulder can signal an impending attack, prompting an instinctive response. This pre-reflexive, embodied communication exemplifies the shared flesh of existence Merleau-Ponty described, where bodies resonate and interact on a fundamental relational level. Sparring also challenges practitioners to be fully present in their bodies as Leib, and the immediacy of the encounter demands a heightened awareness of one's own physicality and its relation to the opponent. This awareness is not simply about the body as an object in space, but as a lived, responsive entity engaged in a conscious, co-constituted flow with the other. In contrast, forms involve a solitary practice of predetermined sequences of movement. At a certain level of proficiency, these sequences are performed with precision and intention, emphasizing discipline, balance, and internal focus. Here, Plessner's concept of Leib becomes especially relevant as the practitioners inhabit their bodies, both subject and object. When practicing forms, the practitioner engages with their body as life, experiencing it as center of sensation, effort, and flow. The movements are felt from within as the practitioner strives to perfect the alignment, power, and rhythm. At the same time, the body is treated as körper, an external object to be shaped and refined according to specific bodily norms, values, and ideals, in a dual engagement, living through the body while simultaneously reflecting on it. Forms practice and sparring can therefore be understood as offering fundamental forms of human experience. Forms practice offers an opportunity to experience bodily alignment, power, and rhythm, while sparring offers an opportunity for an interplay of two lived bodies responding to and shaping each other's movements in real time. Both therefore offer a fundamental experience of I and you, or ego and alter. To conclude, analytical concepts by Merleau-Ponty and Plessner help to understand the nuances of bodily experience in taekwondo practice, countering around sparring and forms. Sparring emphasizes the relational and the corporeal nature of the body, highlighting how embodied existence is always in connection with others. Forms, on the other hand, center the individual's relationship with their own body, exploring the tension between living through the body as life and reflecting on it as an object or körper. Both, however, can be viewed as most fundamental modes of experience and therefore, as Heidegger would have posted, authenticity. Together, these practices show how taekwondo practice might provide an authentic experience of one's own body or life and the framing for shared meaning-making as dense form of intercorporeality. Instead of providing a detailed discussion of my argument, I would rather like to pose a few questions that could help to frame the discussion following this presentation. Is tradition unimportant for experiencing true authenticity in taekwondo practice? Can this type of authenticity be too manufactured in practice by the instructor? If so, how can this be done? If this type of authenticity is manufactured too, is it still to be considered an authentic experience then? And finally, a highly speculative question which I absolutely have no empirical data on. Does the average taekwondo athlete stay longer in taekwondo because he or she experiences true authenticity to a larger scale than practitioners of traditional taekwondo? Thank you very much, and I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming discussion.
Thank you very much. The last presenter is Dr. Stephen Kapener.
Am I able to share content on the screen? Okay, hold on. I need to. I'm sorry, it's taking me a minute to find my file here. I'm working on a iPad, so. Okay. Hmm. Sorry about this. I think I may have to log in on my PC. So let me do that. And what's the new password, Udo? 944 what?
Password is, wait.
949.
9499. Wait, cannot hear. Yes, dear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a second. I need to find it on in my files, but I know where it is now. So,
No problem. We will cut this out at the end when we publish the conference on YouTube. This part we cut out, yeah.
okay.
You got it?
Yes.
I hang up, okay? Yeah, I'm hanging up, okay?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Okay. So. Hello everybody. Sorry about the bad start. Let me turn on my. There he is. Hello everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. Sorry about the bad start. Let me get right into it. I've done a lot of this before, so I'm going to go quickly through the first part. The first part I talked about the notion of traditional taekwondo. What does that mean? And the tension between the competing categories of traditional and sport. It's easy to identify what sport means, but traditional, the word traditional has some problems in defining what it actually means. We could use these markers: old, ancient, indigenous, self-defense oriented, lethal, non-sport, having a clear identity, but all of these are very problematic when we try to apply them to martial arts. Oops, sorry. For instance, in the case of taekwondo, the only category where the meaning of traditional can be actually demonstrated is in non-sport. In all the other meanings listed above, the word is essentially meaningless. Old ancient, for instance, as we know, taekwondo only developed in 1945. Indigenous also, we have the same problem. It's not indigenous to Korea. Self-defense oriented or lethal, the traditional martial arts are more deadly than sport. And of course, mixed martial arts have shown this to be absolutely not true. Non-sport is again, the only appropriate sort of label that we could keep with when we talk about traditional. And possessing a clear philosophy, although traditional martial arts philosophies are all extremely unsystemized, or they rely on other philosophical systems like Zen Buddhism. Really what traditional means is pre-modern. And that's how I approach it, and that's how I understand it. And so when I talk about the modernization of the martial arts, I talk about the raison d'etre of martial arts changing from the need to actually fight to something else, which in almost all cases is sport. And judo, kendo and judo were the first martial arts to do this. And so really what this means is there was a shift in the definition of victory from death or the disabling of an opponent to victory determined by technical superiority, which can only really be demonstrated in sparring. And so the only way to safely do this was to apply a set of rules, at which point you have a sport. Some martial arts that didn't modernize would be some schools of karate, hapkido, aikido, and some of the Chinese forms of martial arts. So I've been using this schematic to sort of illustrate the relationship between the three aspects of the martial art: its technical system, what the objectives of the techniques, and the values that are supposed to be inherent in the training itself. Traditional martial arts claim this relationship. Training consisting of basic movements, forms, breaking, no or light contact sparring, the objective being real fighting ability, and the values enlightenment or self-perfection. Sports have this relationship, a full contact sparring system, superior, the demonstrating superiority over the opponent, and the values in Taekwondo's case remain undefined, which is part of the problem that modern sport Taekwondo has. What we're looking for is a harmony between all these parts of method, value, and objective within a certain system. In my opinion, the problem with sport Taekwondo is its values are ill-defined. The problem with traditional Taekwondo is there is this inconsistency between its technical system and its training objectives. The assertion that if you train this way, you'll be better at real fighting. So what we need to develop an organic connection between these parts. An example of where this breaks down is something that the World Taekwondo body claims, or they have this peace initiative. They claim Taekwondo promotes peace. Here we have a clearly stated objective and possibly a value. However, what we're missing is a method. Logically, the objective must be a causal outcome of the method. Otherwise, it's an accident that probably can't be repeated. How does Taekwondo promote peace? Which aspects of Taekwondo? Its technique, diplomacy, what kind of peace? Are there any demonstrable cases where Taekwondo has clearly been shown to promote peace? The same argument could be applied to traditional martial arts claims of self-defense effectiveness or fighting deadliness. If the objective is real fighting effectiveness, what's the method? It's almost impossible to demonstrate a clear correlation between repeating basic techniques, which are in many cases unscientific and archaic. The horse riding stance, doing endless repetitive middle punches in a horse riding stance. Repeating basic techniques and stances and doing equally unrealistic forms. The techniques and the forms, when we actually talk about applying them to self-defense, are often just absurd. For instance, in the fifth dan form, there's a technique called pushing the rock. Hauyumiri. I dare anybody to show me a correlation between that and any aspect of effective self-defense. Likewise, non or low contact sparring, where there's a break after every encounter, is equally anachronistic in its relationship to real fighting. So traditional Taekwondo suffers from an internal contradiction between its stated training objectives and its training method. And I would further argue that this contradiction makes its value objectives fundamentally unobtainable. While sport Taekwondo solved the training objectives, training methods relationship, it failed to sufficiently articulate the training values, which inherently derive from its practice, something that the last presenter talked about, that Hegel addresses, which I think, Heidegger, excuse me. I think Heidegger and Merleau-Ponty's approaches could be used to some extent solve the problem that that sport Taekwondo has in articulating its values. Put another way, traditional Taekwondo fails in realizing its training values due to the absence of a realistic relationship between its training goals and methods. Sport Taekwondo, while solving the goals methods problem, failed in articulating and promoting a coherent, realizable set of values or a philosophy, relying instead on vague, esoteric philosophies that are used in traditional Taekwondo. In fact, and here's something that people don't talk about enough. In all advanced democracies, there's practically no need to invest hundreds, if not thousands of dollars and hours of time learning how to protect oneself. The state does that for us. I have many, many friends that have spent their entire lives, dedicated to training in martial arts that have never been in a fight. In fact, the ones I know who have been in a fight, that is more related to their personality than to any imperative of a situation where they found themselves. In others, they like to fight, so they got in fights. I don't know anybody, with the exception of a couple of women, who have ever been really forced to defend themselves. So there's just no need, there's no call for that. And so this obsession with traditional martial arts, talking about deadliness and street fighting effectiveness, is a bit confusing. Of course, having such skills is a good thing. It's a plus. but the practical need is almost zero and does not justify the time and money spent to acquire those skills. In reality, all forms of martial arts that can claim real fighting effectiveness have highly developed sport forms where sparring can be conducted under minimal restrictions. Martial arts with no sport element are all ineffectual in real fighting situations compared to the sport forms. That's just not even debatable. In fact, the most effective form of martial combat is mixed martial arts, which was only able to develop because of its sport format. But just having a sport element is not enough. The format must be designed to produce certain desired technical outcomes. Sport taekwondo developed in a way that allowed powerful and realistic kicks to evolve along with a sophisticated system of footwork and tactics or strategy. But due to corruption in the referee corps and the World Taekwondo Federation itself, the sport had to adopt or chose to adopt an electronic scoring system. And as a result, most of the martial virtues that the sport possessed when it was a power-oriented rule set had now disappeared to be replaced by game elements. I don't know how many of you noticed, but last weekend was the first virtual World Taekwondo Championships, where people put on a virtual headset and fight virtual opponents. And they called it Taekwondo. This is a natural devolution of what was a once serious and unique martial sport. And there are two main causes for this result. The Korean Taekwondo community could not let go of the basic training format of karate and embrace sport as its core identity. If you look at the forms of both ITF and WT Taekwondo, the stances, the blocks are all essentially karate. I don't care if the Taekwondo front stance is 2 degrees different or the back stance is shorter, or, I'm sorry, Dr. Lewis, but, the sine wave, to me, that's just bouncy karate. You're still doing a front stance lunge punch, but you're just bouncing. So the inability to jettison all of that, let it go, and adopt sport as the core identity is the reason that Taekwondo suffers from this identity crisis. The other problem is the endemic and chronic corruption on the part of the refereeing and administrative officials led to leaving the sport in the hands of an electronic machine to define what it is. And so now we have what we have. We have kicks that are not intended to cause damage, but to close a circuit and score a point. Essentially a video game with a live opponent. And that's where I'll end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Now we start the discussion. Who wants to start with a question? Nobody has a question?
Maybe I can go. Firstly, to Dr. Martin, I think it's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that authenticity is experienced, or we can consider authenticity in Taekwondo through the phenomenological experience of moving our living bodies, or like, as the Germans like to say. And you mentioned how the other things, like the dobok, all the signs on the walls in the dojang, all those other things are theater, which is kind of fake. It's not authentic because it's more theatrical. So this is just kind of a personal anecdote, which is confirmed by many other people who take up martial arts, is the effect that the theater has on the body. So in my case, I remember the first time I put on a dobok and how it changed my body. It changed how I stood. Suddenly I stood taller because I have this superhero outfit on, and I've seen that so many times with new students. Like they come to class, they don't have a dobok yet, they train, and then like after a few days, their dobok that they ordered arrive and they put on the dobok for the first time, and suddenly their whole attitude changes. So I wonder if you could comment on how the theater, or what you might consider the non-authentic, actually contributes to this authentic bodily experience.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And I mostly agree with you, I would say. So my point was maybe to criticize that those decorations and everything, of course, they can contribute to the experience of authenticity, but then still it's like it's part of the perception of the individuals, right, of the practitioners. So it's still something which emerges in the life, as you say, but still the assemblage of the different symbols and everything still can be um, like it's difficult to attribute authenticity to the objects themselves, right? But authenticity still is the thing that emerges in the individual. So yeah, I think you pointed it out quite nicely yourself. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if I may, I would have a question. And my question would be for Professor Mönig. So I was wondering, because you introduce a couple of historic Taekwondo books on Taekwondo technique, and I was wondering if those books have any accounts on training practice. So not specifically the techniques that were trained, but how the training itself was designed, like the classes of training, how they were designed. Is there any information on that too in that books?
You talk about this early Taekwondo books?
Right, exactly.
Not really, not really. It's very basic. Most of these books, they talk about forms, so mostly it's kata. And then the introduction is always basic stances, then some kicks and blocks, and then 2/3 of the box is usually dedicated to forms, so kata mostly. Yeah.
So if I may take up another question, do you, or maybe also the other presenters, do you know any books or any papers or any publications on the actual historic practice of Taekwondo? So how it was practiced in the Guan era, for example. So who practiced, what kinds of students practice Taekwondo? Where did they practice specifically? How often? Like all those things that make up the, let's say, specific cultural context in which Taekwondo is actually practiced at that time.
Well, I think that's mostly this information is usually based on interviews or what people have written down, and I'm not sure interviews how much I can believe always, you know.
One possibility is to look at the grading criteria. At least that will give you a sense of what they were training and what they were expected to know. And I do know that you can find some of those grading criteria. Some of the old books have, well, at least in the ITF books, they have kind of a rubric for the gradings.
Danko, I have question. You have begin with the differentiate of three kind of taekwondo. What is the base of this differentiation of three kind of taekwondo, and especially what is the American style taekwondo? Can you explain about that?
Yes, let me first mention that I got that differentiation from, let me just see if I can see the name, from Dr. Hee-Young Kim, who wrote this big book about Taekwondo history. And so the base is whether or not Taekwondo, how Taekwondo changed. So the first one is what we can call Korean karate. And those were those early Taekwondo practitioners that went abroad, and which you mentioned, they went abroad for job opportunities and so on. So people like Jun Lee and Henry Cho, those instructors, and they went abroad during the early period of Taekwondo's evolution, like the 1950s, early 1960s. And so what they were teaching in America stayed basically the same to karate. So the way they taught it and was basically karate, whereas in Korea, Taekwondo started to evolve. And so it evolved into two big branches, ITF Taekwondo and Kuki or WT Taekwondo. So those are the three groups. So the three groups are ITF Taekwondo, WT Taekwondo, and Korean Karate, which sometimes go by names like Tangsudo, because that is one of the Korean karate forms.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question?
Udo,
Okay.
you have a textbook from Hunaoshi Kitchen, Karate Do textbook, and cover, you can look the 금강이 역사상. Understand?
Yeah.
Why Hunaoshi Kitchen, the 금강 역사상 in cover? So, yeah, the show was.
This is wait. This is not. I'm not sure about
karate.
this. That's the English translation and who designed the cover. This was not from the original 35 book. This is a different cover, and I also don't think from 57. This is the English translation from 73. I'm not sure why it was used.
Okay, interesting.
I have a question to you. About you said Taekwondo was the first Hallyu. Well, I agree, kind of, but I don't think people who write about Hallyu, the Korean wave, would agree with you or with the statement there.
One more time. What is your question?
Well, you said Taekwondo was the first Hallyu.
Yeah, I say about that. Yeah.
But I think most people would not agree with you. I haven't seen this in any publication so far. I agree with you, though, but
that's my opinion. Yeah, right. But I can just make very historical base for this my argument. But not this time, but another time I can test this one. Yeah.
I think I read the same statement that Taekwondo is the first Hallyu from an article co-published with Dr. George Vitale. And yeah, I'll have to search for that article. But yeah, he also stated that Taekwondo is the first Hallyu.
but this only by Taekwondo people you can see this statement. But from non-Taekwondo people, I haven't seen this once, the statement.
Yeah, Hallyu come from the 1984. The John Duhan make the pro football league in Korea and K football. So K at the time begin the K-pop and K and yeah, but I think so. The Korean wave or the Korean culture. So the taekwondo is this beginner. I think so. Was so I have you show the picture, so many picture in 1950, 60, 70, yeah, yeah, but that is a good argumentation. Okay.
So any other questions?
The term
I have
Hallyu was not even made by Koreans. It was made by the Chinese. The Chinese were the ones that first used that, Hong Kong Chinese, in 1998 or something, right? So to retroactively go back and say it's Hallyu is a bit problematic.
I have a question for Dr. Kapener. You mentioned how the traditional martial arts, they claim towards self-defense is on shaky ground, and many of the points you mentioned while you were describing it, I was thinking, oh, these things apply to modern WT. What's happening in WT now is like you mentioned, for one thing, point sparring. And the last time I saw a WT sparring match, it looked like point sparring because the fight was interrupted constantly. It wasn't continuous sparring anymore. I wonder if you could expand a bit on how WT has changed and how it's lost its, like, what would you call, full contact element, and how it's become what, yeah, kind of how
Yeah,
it has the
I
failings of traditional martial arts now.
I understand the question, and that is that's the crux of the problem. You know, it's simply put, when it was the standard body protector, you had to hit hard enough to make a loud sound. And there was something called trembling shock. There had to be slight displacement of the opponent's body in order to recognize a point. So it was a power-based system. And what Taekwondo had done was they had taken their fighting techniques and tried to make a sport format that could showcase those to the greatest possible extent. And in the process, as Udo has said in several of his articles and in his book, The Evolution of the Sport, new techniques also were created. What has happened with the use of the electronic body protector is that now Taekwondo people no longer can define what Taekwondo is. You know, I was one of the things I did working for the WTF from 1989 to 1993 was we rewrote the rules and added footnotes to try and make them clearer. And a couple of things we had to do was, you know, define the parts of the body that you have to strike the opponent with in order for it to be a recognized point, right? So, like, if a shin hits the body, is that a point? You know, and we said no. It has to be the top or the bottom of the foot or the heel. You know, the ankle or the shin doesn't count because those are not considered to be classical Taekwondo techniques, right? So they had to be Taekwondo techniques that were recognized as part of the syllabus of Taekwondo fighting. And now we don't get to do that anymore. The machine does it. All the machine doesn't care how you kick. It doesn't care with how much power you kick. It doesn't care from what angle you kick. All that it cares about is that a circuit gets closed, an electronic circuit. That's the definition of Taekwondo. Closing a circuit between the sensors on the body and the sensors on the foot or the hand. And any way you do that is now considered a Taekwondo point or a Taekwondo technique. That's why you see such ridiculous iterations of interaction in taekwondo matches that don't look anything like A, either taekwondo, or B, even fighting. The machine doesn't understand those concepts. It doesn't care, right? So absolutely, you know, the value of, you know, power taekwondo and speed and footwork and the ability to apply those in a real situation are almost completely gone down because of, you know, the way that the Federation has decided to deal with its corruption issues, which is to take scoring out of the hands of human beings.
Any
Thank you.
comments? Any comments or questions?
I have a question for Dr. Minerick, which isn't about his presentation, which I liked very much, but about his upcoming conference.
Yeah.
I think you should plug that. And I also am intending to apply. So I hope you view my application
Great.
favorably.
Absolutely. Looking forward to hear it.
It's an in-person conference, I assume.
It is, yeah. So the plan is to have it only in person, but I mean, depending on what other presentations will come in that maybe make it necessary to do a hybrid conference, then maybe we'll think about doing a hybrid conference then, but it's not clear then. So since you mentioned it, I would like to invite everyone here to hand in abstracts made for the upcoming Martial Arts Studies Conference at the University in Göttingen, which will take place in March 11th until March 13th next year. And if you're interested, I can also share the call for papers with all of you. So it would be great if you're interested.
I don't suppose there would be any
Yeah.
travel subsidies or lodging subsidies.
Not at the moment, but we can also think about that more.
Understood.
More in detail.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so if I may, I would like to pose another question for you, Udo.
Yeah.
And specifically about, I don't know if you have the content of the Taekwondo book by Pak Chul Hee, if you have it present. So I was wondering.
Not here. I have them at home. These books are only available in a couple of Korean libraries. And over the years, I ordered them and then I copied them. There might be only like one or two left.
Right. I see. So my question would be if you can recall any Taekyon techniques or something like that that was included in the book, because as I remember, Pak Chol, he was like maybe even the first martial artist who trained for some occasions together with Taekyon master Song Dok-ki. So I was wondering if there was any aspects of Taekyon that were included in this book.
No, there's not a single aspect of Taekyon. So Taekyon, I think, is first mentioned in a book by Che Hong-hee in 65, where he claims, but like, you know, the Bituru-chagi is the inside-out kick. I don't think you can see before the 70s, especially the ITF guys, they always showed this kick. But I know the picture from Song Dok-ki, like where he took somewhere in Seoul in a park, yeah. But there's not a single picture in any of these books like this.
Thank you.
The only non-Taekwondo content are these three Chinese martial arts pictures by Huang Yi in 49. And Huang Yi also, I think his second book he published in 58, and also he doesn't have any Chinese martial arts content anymore. He names, I think, a Chinese martial art form just only by name. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. No more questions? Maybe Professor Park, Cindy Park, do you have any questions? She
He
doesn't hear
didn't
me.
offer his speaker, so
Okay.
yes.
Wait.
She got it.
박 교수님 질문하세요. 구경하셨는데, 박 교수님.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much for your good, amazing presentation. If like that, can I ask to Professor Song? 질문 드려도 돼요? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. Could you let me understand about the soft power? Could you explain to me more in detail about the soft power? What's relation with taekwondo?
저한테 질문, you question to us? To me? Or
네, 교수님께. 네. Yes.
soft power is the new power definition. This Joseph Nye is a political scientist, Harvard University. He wrote a book 2004. The title is Soft Power.
Yeah.
And the traditional national power consists of the military power and the economical power. But he said nowadays, so the cultural power is more important in the international relationship. So he argumentation and argument, so soft power is very important in the modern society. But nowadays, you know that Russian and Israel original power is more important. But
Yeah.
nowadays you can think about the Korean is so. Do you understand what soft power?
Yes, I understand. Yes. Keep going. Yes.
Yeah, and I think so. Taekwondo is a kind of soft power. This for Korean culture power also. Yeah. So many people, many Korean supporters. I think so. Yeah. I say so many Korean supporters learn Taekwondo. Through Taekwondo, they love Korea and Korea culture. So I argue about that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes. I heard the first time, so this is very good. Yes, Siri. Thank you.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
So a year and a half ago, Kukiwan asked me to be on a committee trying to promote Taekwondo's acceptance by UNESCO as cultural heritage. And I participated on this committee a few times. But as expected, what I was afraid of was going to happen, which, of course, in order to demonstrate Taekwondo's value and legitimacy as a UNESCO World Heritage, they had to lie brutally about its history, because it's very problematic to talk about a martial art as a cultural heritage when it's really only 75 years old and it came from Japan. So the amount of lying and obfuscating and exaggeration that was going on in the process of trying to put together this UNESCO package was, frankly, it was disgusting. It was really, really disagreeable. So I resigned from the committee. I made my position clear to them and said, you know, if I'm on this committee, you're definitely not going to get approved by UNESCO. So you should, you don't want me here. But you also should have a sense of conscience about what you're doing. Is it worth it to be recognized by UNESCO if what they're recognizing is not based in reality? So that's the problem with soft power and promoting it. You know, things that Professor Minerick talked about, authenticity and genuineness. And this is a problem that Taekwondo still hasn't solved for itself completely.
All right. If there are no more questions, I think let's finish for today. And next week, we will cut some bad parts out, and then we put it on YouTube, and I will let you know. So thank you very much for everybody's participation. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Dr. Mooney. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you very much.
Nice to see everybody again.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.